boy! We're now 3 movies deep into my first time viewing of the Fast and the Furious saga, and now it's time for Tokyo Drift, a cinematic experience that defies both physics and the simplest of logic. But that's okay. I mean, we're used to that. At least we've got the characters that I've grown to know and tolerate, and not a bunch of nobodies I've never heard of or seen before that I'm suddenly required to care about, right? Because that would be stupid. Before we begin, however, I want to drift on over and say hello and thank you to my Patreons, John Borg, James Gibbons, Bradley Amel Julian, and our newest Patreon, Juliano Toniato. Cool name. Cool Patreons. If you want to become a Patreon and receive perks such as exclusive videos, first looks, and prioritized movie review requests for the VHS Vault and this show, Jason Watches, you can do that for less than the cost of a cheap meal at McDonald's, and I promise you, it will not give you high cholesterol, acne, or make you farty. If this tickles your fancy, you can find out more about becoming a Patreon in the link in the video description below. And now that that disgusting bit of internet begging is out of the way, let's, as the kids say, put the pedal to the metal and drift on into this, let's just say, ill-advised sequel. Look, obviously Universal still didn't have a clue what they had with the Fast and the Furious franchise, as they were still treating the cast of these movies like garbage. Vin Diesel wasn't in the last one because Universal didn't want to wait for him, and Paul Walker wasn't even asked to return for this one because, get this, Universal thought he was too old. I mean, I'm sorry, what? Look, I've said before, and unapologetically, that I am not a fan of Paul Walker's acting, but to say he looked too old? The dude looked like he was in his 20s while he was in his 40s. That's just dumb. So the studio decided to start from scratch with a brand new cast and a brand new location. Surely dumping the entire cast of a surprised and beloved hit franchise can only be a prudent move, right? Oh no. Our movie starts off in an American high school. How do we know we're in America? Well, there's subtle hints. We meet Sean Boswell, played by Lucas Black, who is totally a teenager and not a grown man in his 20s. As you guessed, he's a car enthusiast because honestly, what else could he be? This is the F&F universe. There are no doctors or lawyers. Everyone is into cars and that's all they're allowed to be into. Brad from Home Improvement plays a bully, which is, I know, totally out of character for Zachary Ty Bryant, and smashes Sean's windshield with a rock. You would think this would be something that Sean would take to the police since Brad's car is nice and his family's obviously loaded and he could get a settlement, but no. This is the universe of the Fast and the Furious, and all legal matters must be solved on the blacktop. So Sean and Brad decide to race not only for their pride, but also for Brad's girl. Because women are currency whose only purpose is to look hot. The Fast and the Furious. Car fast, girl pretty. Hey guys, we're breaking into this construction area. Could you keep it quiet so we don't get caught? Never mind. The race is on, and I love the look on Sean's face when he races. It looks like he had a BM accident, which, I won't lie, is understandable. Also, Sean's car is indestructible, apparently. Course it's indestructible. It was made in America. The first race is, well, it's okay. I feel the director tried to take advantage of the construction site as a backdrop for the race, but never really managed to take advantage of it except for Sean running his car through a house, which was kind of cool, even if it made no sense. I don't know. If there was ever a reason to meld the Fast and the Furious with Smokey and the Bandit, this would have been the perfect opportunity. Brad from Home Improvement doesn't like that he's losing, and so decides to play dirty, leading both cars into gnarly crashes. Both cars getting totaled in an illegal street race? Oh no, it's the consequences of our own stupid actions. Brad and his girlfriend get off scot-free because they're rich and rich people suck. Sean, however, runs the risk of getting tried as an adult mostly because he looks like he's 32 years old. To keep himself from going to jail, Sean's mommy sends him to live with Daddy in Japan. During this difficult time in Sean's life, you learn a few things about him, mostly that he's a sniggly little brat who pouts constantly and makes passive-aggressive remarks to anyone around him when he's grumpy, basically blaming everyone around him for the choices that he has made and the consequences that he has to endure. So basically, he's like a teenager. Even though he doesn't look like one, he's acting like one. You also learn that he's just a terrible person, all the way down to his terrible core. But that's okay, right? That can only mean that he's on a journey of change, right? Right? Oh God, the movie thinks he's in the right to begin with. Sean is late to his first day of school, and it's weird because he's enrolled into a Japanese-speaking school, even though he doesn't seem to speak Japanese. In fairness, though, at times it seems like he barely speaks English either. At the school, he meets Little Bow Wow, and despite being a horrible person to him and everyone else he's around, the two bond over Little Bow Wow's car, and Little Bow Wow introduces Sean to the colorful and wild world of Tokyo street racing. I know Little Bow Wow's character has a name, but I like calling him Little Bow Wow instead. I also know that he doesn't like to be called Little Bow Wow anymore, but his mama called him Little Bow Wow, so I'm going to call him Little Bow Wow. It's here that Sean is introduced to Neela, the romantic interest of the story. The two have a kind of chemistry that would put Sean on a watch list and force him to inform everyone else in the neighborhood that he's on that list. If you know what I mean. Quick, what's the most predictable thing that will happen next? That's right! Neela is DK's girl. But I know what you're asking. Who's DK? DK is, of course, the antagonist of this movie, but will someone please tell me why DK and Sean have more sexual tension than Neela and Sean did? Sean challenges DK to a race, and Han, a fellow racer, loans him an entire car because you apparently do that for strangers in Tokyo. However, Sean doesn't know that DK stands for Drift King. In fairness, though, Sean doesn't seem to know a lot of things. Drifting is how they do things in Tokyo, and Sean is terrible at it and smashes up poor Han's car while DK beats him like the hillbilly drum that he is. It's embarrassing, really. So Sean is humiliated, Han is upset with him because of the car that he probably shouldn't have loaned him in the first place, and Sean's dad threatens to throw him out for racing. Again, Sean is facing the consequences of his own actions and decisions and comes off as a terrible, selfish piece of human garbage. This is your protagonist, ladies and gentlemen, and there's still an hour to go. Han wants his money, so he picks up Sean from school and sends him to an onsen to get money from a guy for him. Now this guy, he's a chonk, but Sean is successful even though it does take him a couple of tries. Wait. Did the big guy dress Sean before he threw him out? Well, that was awfully nice of him. Creepy, but nice. I bet it was like forcefully putting clothes on a struggling Ken doll. To pay back his debt for totaling the car, Sean has to do tasks for Han. In return, Sean tells Han that he has to teach him how to drift, which I have to ask, who the heck are you to demand anything from Han? You wrecked his car. That's like calling an impound yard and saying, yeah, I'll pay you to release my car that got towed, but you're going to give me some gift certificates to McDonald's, and that's final. It's literally not how the world works, but since this is the Fast and Furious universe where car fast, girl pretty, Han agrees. Neela and Sean struggle and fail to find even the most elementary type of chemistry between them, and Han shows Sean that the cops in Japan don't even bother to come after you if your speed is over 180, which seems important. I wonder if that'll come in handy later. Oh, no. It just explains why the cops never show up to any of the street races. I mean, forget that some of these races take place in parking garages where there would be no way to escape if the cops showed up, and forget that whenever they're at their garages, they're the same speed as everyone else. Tokyo Drift wants you to know that Japanese cops quit before the race begins. I'm not Japanese or a cop, and even I find that offensive. Han takes Sean to a party where we're reminded that Little Bow Wow exists. Kind of like rewatching this movie reminded you that Little Bow Wow existed too. There are so many long shots in this movie of women gyrating and cars existing, as if the movie is trying desperately to match the style of the first two films, and somehow failing. Is it really that hard?
Keep your hands off the kid, girls. He's underage.
Underage? Isn't the age of consent in Japan 16? Surely they aren't insinuating that Sean is 16. That would make this movie science fiction. Han takes Sean out for his first drifting lesson, and he totally sucks at it, which is fine because his drifting matches his acting, but unlike his acting, I'm pretty sure the drifting will improve. Han and Sean spend more time bonding and developing a more believable chemistry than Sean and Neela really ever had a chance for. And besides, Han and Sean, it's a cuter couple name. The next part of the movie is mostly a montage of Sean learning how to drift, working for Han, and still trying to justify why Little Bow Wow is in the movie at all. Normally, lazy montages annoys me, but this one's okay because it just means we're skipping large parts of this movie. And now, thanks to the montages, Sean is magically good at drifting, and I accept that. He beats Morimoto, one of DK's right-hand guys in a drift race, and starts to gain respect from the drifting crowds. DK, however, is not amused by Sean's rising star. Sean and Neela go out on a date and decide to drift together. They're like two magnets repelling each other, but the movie keeps trying to push them together, despite the fact that the very laws of nature are against this pairing. DK shows up at one of Sean's training sessions and does what the audience has been wanting to do the entire movie. But because it's in the script, Neela gets upset over this and breaks up with DK, all to live her dream of unfulfilling love. This is like a romance written in disappearing ink. Uh-oh! DK's Yakuza uncle pays his nephew a visit and reveals to him that Han has been stealing from him. So DK and the rest of the Kong army goes after Han, and after Little Bow Wow creates a diversion. Was that the whole point of him being in this movie? Han, Sean, and Neela attempt to escape in their cars. After a silly but exciting car chase in which, honest to goodness, they drift through the crowded Shibuya scramble and somehow don't murder anyone, Sean and Neela crash and Han gets blowed up. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The most charismatic and interesting character in the entire movie is dead. Man, you can really tell that the death of Sean's friend and mentor has really affected him, the way that he stares blankly and says things without commitment. Sure, he's been doing that for the whole movie, but now at least you could say it's shock? DK then comes for Sean, but Neela agrees to go with DK to spare him because, remember, in this franchise, women are currency. Sean then decides to go and talk to DK's Yakuza uncle himself in a display of unlimited stupidity and limited self-preservation. He returns the money that Han stole and then proposes a race between him and DK to settle the dispute between them. Logically, this conversation should have ended in gunfire and Sean's body hitting the floor with a satisfying splat. But this is the Fast and Furious universe, where car fast, girl pretty. So DK's Uncle Cranky Kong goes along with it for some reason, and honestly, I don't care anymore. Then we get another montage of Sean preparing for the race, which is cool because it just means we get to skip even more of this movie. When it comes to the actual race, it's a wordless action sequence that seems more like an epilogue than a climax, but that's fine, because Sean doesn't say anything. Even in bad movies like this, the car races are the star, even when the movie barely seems to have any. And quite honestly, this last race is the best part of the movie. Where the rest of the races and chases in The Fast and the Furious have been slick and stylish, this one is very visceral and brutal. You honestly get a good idea of the hatred that these two characters have for each other, and how far they're willing to go as metal scrapes against metal. I didn't like much about this movie, but I liked this. Long story short, DK races dirty and crashes, Sean wins the race, and Neela goes to Sean because she's currency, remember? A little while later, Sean is working in his garage and is challenged to a race by someone who claimed they knew Han. And when Sean rolls up on the starting line, who should it be but Bigfoot? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. That's just Dom. My bad. And that is how the Yakuza was defeated by a white street racer and peace was finally brought to Japan. I'm not going to lie here. So far, the Fast and Furious movies, a movie series I have never seen before, if you couldn't tell by the title of this video, have been fun movies. I've enjoyed them for the dumb car porn that they are. This is the first one that I have had trouble sitting through. Watching Tokyo Drift from beginning to end is a Herculean feat for me because even though I have no idea what's coming in this series beyond what I've seen in commercials and the occasional spoilers from people who can't shut their big stupid mouths, even I could tell what an ultimate nothing burger this movie is and how little it matters. Quite honestly, I think I need an award for sitting through it. Do you want to know why this movie didn't work? I mean, sure, there is a myriad of reasons, from dumping the stars of the franchise to the boring story, but the main contributing factor is Lucas Black. Don't get me wrong, Black has done good work since Tokyo Drift and has shown real talent, but I really believe he didn't know what to make of this movie or how to fit into it. Because he didn't. I've heard of fish out of water, but Lucas Black is a fish in the middle of a desert in this film. Not to mention that, as I've said before, Sean is a terrible character that I really don't think that any actor could have made interesting or sympathetic. He pouts, he whines, he's passive-aggressive, he blames everyone for his own actions, and worst of all, he doesn't grow. He never changes. He's the same terrible person at the end of the movie as he was at the beginning. Let me put it to you this way. He made me miss Paul Walker. Sure, Paul Walker was a terrible actor, and I've made my opinion about that no secret. But he at least made Brian a likable person. Lewis Black didn't have the ability to make Sean a likable person because honestly, I don't think it was possible. As I said, though, that's one of a myriad of problems with this film. Here are more. I wouldn't call the Fast and Furious movies so far Shakespearean in scope, but they were at least paced in a manner that allowed you to take a breath every now and again between the car chases. Tokyo Drift moves so fast and pushes us through the story at such a pace that I honestly think pieces of the script were left behind in tatters on the roadway. I don't know. For a movie that has a new cast and new location and new way of racing, Tokyo Drift feels incredibly derivative, like it's the same old, same old. Nothing is interesting. Nothing is new. It's like getting a Christmas gift that you know was regifted from last Christmas. I wouldn't call the police angle of the first two movies high art in this genre, but it's obvious that when you get rid of it and replace it with just some jerk-face racing, the movie loses a bit of oomph and the plot becomes so tepid and tedious. I wouldn't have thought it was possible, but Tokyo Drift was actually taking the Fast and the Furious and dumbing it down for people who thought the first two movies were too confusing. The car chases are okay, but there are too few of them. The movie, I guess in a misguided attempt to save money, skimped on them to focus on the human element of the movie. Someone should tell the executives who made that decision that exactly 0 people in the world are interested in the human element of the Fast and Furious films, and even less when it involves whoever the hell Sean was supposed to be. Finally, I can't be the only one who's ever noticed this, but the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift is yet another example of the white savior in an Asian country movie. You got this white guy coming in, learning a Japanese skill, becoming better at it than the Japanese people who live there, and saving the day with it. As Bernie Mac once said, "I seen it." The Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift is the most unnecessary movie I've seen in a very long time. Sure, none of the Fast and Furious movies have been completely necessary, but I can see why people like them. This movie feels like a giant loogie being hawked into the face of fans by the studio. You like Brian and Dom? Well, fudge you! Here's a dope from Alabama you're gonna watch for 2 hours. Oh no, why didn't this movie make as much money? Yes, Tokyo Drift was the least successful movie of the franchise, and it's not a surprise as to why. I mean, I just did an entire video on it. Were you not paying attention? Universal removed the stars and replaced them with a terrible character in a terrible movie. The only thing that Tokyo Drift does that I would call unexpected is when it pulls off an unexpectedly great race like the final one in this film. Listen, the people in this film don't react to things like normal humans do. You don't form a bromance with a guy only to have zero reaction when he blows up right in front of you. I am not expecting high art and realism from a Fast and Furious movie, but a modicum of simple storytelling prowess, like the writer has at least observed people in the wild once, would be nice. I didn't connect with Sean. I thought he was a selfish, whiny brat, and he stayed that way through the whole movie. Other characters can barely justify their own existence at all. Remember, the only things that Little Bow Wow did for the plot was to take Sean to a race and then provide a distraction at the end. That's it! This is a blockhead blockbuster without any sense of subtext or subtlety. I almost feel like this movie was more of a parody of the first two films than a direct sequel. It is bad. Listen, I have no idea what's in store for the rest of the saga, but I can't imagine any of them being any worse than this dump truck of dumb. I do have to hand it to Tokyo Drift, though. It made me nostalgic for Paul Walker. It made me miss him. I take back 34.6% of the things I said about his acting. I want him back in these movies. Thankfully, Universal pulled their heads out of their collective sphincters and gave us what we wanted with the fourth movie called, Fast and Furious. Well, that won't be confusing. Thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw here today, please do us a solid and subscribe, like, comment, and press that notification icon so you can be notified when more stupid videos like this are uploaded. Also, what did you think of Tokyo Drift? I had quite a few people tell me it's an underappreciated movie and is actually one of the best Fast and Furious films. These people are wrong, and so are you if you share that opinion, but I still want to hear from you. Did you like it? Did you hate it? What type of cancer would you rather have than see Sean show up in these movies again? That's it for now, but be sure to join me next time to find out what Jason watching.